Are you able to, well, you need mic. Are you able to hear me, everyone? I'm about to start. Can somebody raise their hand if they're able to hear me? Is anybody able to hear me? Oh, good. Okay, great. Great. I'm getting a sense that you're able to hear me. Great. So we're going to start the webinar now. I'm with Kanarja Harvey, who's going to be our lead person today, and I appreciate everybody coming on. And I see one of my students is on, so thank you very much, Tiff. And always great to have a student voice. How do we advance this?
Just press this now.
Oh, okay. So just to go over some, webinar housekeeping. It's good to enter your audio PIN if you're just using the telephone there. If you did not enter the audio PIN, you were given that all on your email that you received from CC George about the sign-on for today. All attendees are muted automatically. It's just the way the system is. Please don't unmute yourself. When we have a Q&A, I will see who raises their hand, and I will unmute you so you can speak. The other way to contribute to the conversation is a chat box. And in the chat box, you can write your question or your comment and use the chat box as a way to communicate with us. And you could do that actually during the actual presentation as well. And we make sure you address your question or statement when we take a break. The raised hand icon is a great way to communicate. The webinar will be recorded. I will be turning on the record feature.
Oh, you are.
I didn't record. Right. Go back. In 1 minute, I'm going to be turning on the record feature. All these webinars are put on the Northwell site and the Zucker School of Medicine site of faculty development, and we upload them to that site, and they're under educational resources. And if you want participants to go back in, or you want to go back in and see something, you can. CME credit is only given for the people who have signed up today and have signed into the webinar, and through the attendance list, we send that off to CME. Okay, so the topic we're doing today, Kanarja Harvey, and I want to start recording, so let me just find that. Where's the panel? Where's that panel? Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So I want to say that Kanar proposed this topic of visual abstracts in medical education, and this is going to be a complete learning experience for me, so I hope it's valuable to all of us, because when he said it, I was like, okay, Kanar, I'm going to let you fly with it, because I didn't know what visual abstracts are, and he is one of our social media technology physician gurus, but in terms of medical education. So that's what makes Kanar very unique. He is an outstanding medical educator as well as a clinician, and he's always on the cutting edge of medical education. He's never in the box, and that's somebody I really enjoy spending time with. So I would like to thank Kanar, and I'm going to let him take over the webinar. He will be going through his PowerPoint. He will be stopping for discussion, so I hope people participate. Please, please, please participate. And Simon, you raised your hand, so let me unmute you a minute. You're unmuted, Simon, if you want to say something.
Oh, just hello, everyone. I didn't.
Okay.
You asked me to raise my hand, so I did. I'll lower it. Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
very good. So Simon is our ex officio, no longer in Northwell, but she's visiting us from sunny Florida. We have a very rainy day here today, Simon. Go ahead. Kanar, you're on.
All right, thanks, Alice, and thanks everyone for coming. So it's going to be slightly different. I know you guys have been discussing actual medical education abstracts and actual studies. There's only one study with uses visual abstracts. So I'll spend some time actually discussing what these are before we actually go into the study. So first we'll describe what a visual abstract is. Then we'll talk about the review examples of visual abstracts. We'll explore ways of using this and how we use it, at least in our community, and what I've used it for. And then we'll talk about this one study that was done using visual abstracts and effects on MedEd. And then finally, we'll discuss various ways one can use visual abstracts in MedEd. So I think this comes into real help when you are actually a visual learner. And if you actually like making lists, you dream in color, you take detailed notes, you understand charts with ease, you like to circle things, you're good at spelling, but you forget names, you probably are a visual learner. And 65% of people or learners actually are visual. So when you actually read a lot of these articles that you see in good journals, I think we are missing the majority of the learners that are more visual in nature. And I see articles have not even one figure. It really pisses me off because you're really not making justice to the type of learners there are, especially in this day and age. So what's the history of visual learners, visual abstracts? So visual abstracts have now flooded the social media world and the medical education world in the last 1 year. And where did this come from, and how is it impacting the sharing of knowledge? So while it takes the average reader about 6 seconds to read 20 words, the visual symbol can be read in 1/4 of a second. And I think that's the key with a visual abstract. If you go back historically, they used to be called graphical abstracts in some of the chemistry journals. And that's where it first started, but really never took off till recently. So basically what they are is visual or graphical abstracts or visual elements that are clearly in a short figure form conveying the main message of the entire paper. They are self-explanatory and together with the title of the paper convey the main message of the article. And given the current attention span of our students and residents and fellows, most learners are visual, and this is a quite effective way of delivering content. So journals in a lot of the medical fields are trying to play with this concept for their specific, areas. So I have to give credit to the person who actually started this, Dr. Andrew Ibrahim, a surgeon who pitched this idea and this concept for his journal, Annals of Surgery. So he says this is on Twitter: "We pitched this idea to editors of Annals of Surgery and they loved it. It was clear in June 2016 that it had disseminated faster. This led to the study that I'm going to talk about later, about the 44 articles from this journal. But basically, these articles got read more frequently and were much more promising." So this is an example of a visual abstract from one of the nephrology papers that talked recently about, does running a marathon damage the kidneys? And this is basically the entire paper taken into a figure form made by someone who just read this, not even the journal, and summarize the primary and the secondary outcomes. So you read the paper and you summarize it in a very figure form in just one slide. And this is much more telling than just writing the results of the paper. So what does the visual abstract tell you and what are the components of it? And this is a visual summary of the manuscript. So you have the title of the actual paper up here. Here are the actual summary data with figures that you create. It starts with the outcome comparison, visual display of the outcomes and data of the outcome. And at the end, you write the citation. It's very simple. And I'll show you a video created by Ibrahim on how actually this is done. Okay, this is a visual abstract that I created for the trial called the AMASON trial that compared use of fluids versus no fluids for someone with contrast nephropathy when they get dye load. So that's the title of the paper. That's my blog, and that's the journal, and that's the author. This is 328 patients, 322 patients compared of this same JFR, either got fluids or no fluids, and a mean dye load was 91 mL, and the contrast rate in nephropathy rate was similar, but the mean cost was much higher when you gave fluids and much lower when you did not give fluids. More complications when you gave fluids, less complications when you did not give fluids. It's a simple way of telling the entire study in a figure format. Okay. I have questions. I see some questions, so let me just take a pause. Christopher Strauss, you have a question?
That's Tiff. He's a student.
Tiff, do you have a question? I see your hand up. You're unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Hi guys. No, I didn't have a question. I'd raised my hand earlier. I guess it just didn't put it down. But all I can say is that as a millennial, this makes perfect sense to me, and I'm shocked that it's really only coming into play now, because it seems like such a logical way to convey information, especially considering that there are so many different resources competing for, the attention of learners and practitioners. This just seems like a no-brainer to me.
So I'm going to show you how this is made so you guys can get a sense of how you can do this very easy. So the next slide is just telling you the adopters. All these journals are starting to adopt. And, it started with Annals of Surgery, and some of the smaller journals kind of picked up. And now, finally, JAMA and New England Journal have also joined the collection of creating visual abstracts. Hospital medicine is one of them. Circulation has joined it. So this is an old slide, so there's much more now. So here is a video that does not have any sound, so just follow what this person is doing. And I can tell you the images we use, like I use something called nounproject.com. It's free. Those are where you get these fun images. And you can also get a bot account, which is cheap, that you can get much better images. But I wouldn't, it takes me sometimes half an hour to make a good one. And if you really want to get good criticism out of it, maybe you want to send it to the key people who have done this a lot, share it on social media, get them edited, and then put it out there. So here's the video from YouTube. Hopefully it'll show up. I tried it earlier, and you guys can see it. So there's no audio, so just keep looking. One more. Before. Okay, here it is. Just went in a different thing. So first, he's going to create a visual field. This is just PowerPoint. This is on PowerPoint. It's all PowerPoint. Just changing colors. So you create he likes to use orange. You can use whatever color. I like blue. And it's creating different fields.
It's a shape.
It's a shape. And you change the color again to a little bit lighter. So you're creating 3 different fields so you can do your icons. And then watch this. Then he's going to add in titles and citations.
Text boxes, right?
Just text boxes on the top and bottom and the images of. Always credit the journal and the authors. And then, if you're making this yourself, you can put your name instead of Annals of Surgery. And then the key findings are added then as a text. And then he's going to put the figures. This is from nounprojects.com. You can get the figures. And he's going to fix the sizes now. He just made extra copies of it. It's going to see that as your excessive administrative duties increase, the barriers to surgical scientists. Done. So that is, and I know this is all recorded, so you can actually look at this online. So that's how you make a visual abstract. So today's articles, the first one is sort of a review article, and then the second one is the visual abstracts to the actual study. So let me just talk a little bit about the first article because it's really more of a descriptive, and then we'll take questions. It really talks about the pros and cons of a visual abstract if you read it, And the pros are really improved dissemination, deeper engagement, influencing clinical practice. You reach out to the visual learner, which is 65% of us. But maybe there's oversimplification. There might be some biases of the creator of the abstract, and who's controlling the quality of these abstracts? The journals, the individuals making it. And I'm glad the journals are taking the lead, so they're edited and vested and are backed up by these journals. So these are some guidelines that Ibrahim comes up with to sort of make sure that everyone follows when they make an abstract. Make sure the question and purpose of the study is clearly stated. There is the research design stated. The primary outcome with p-values is stated. And they've labeled the citation, and the language is used exactly from the journal, and use images that actually have, they are free from this nounprojects.com, and good idea to externally get these reviewed by someone who has done this before. This really gives the credibility to your visual abstracts. So, overall, it's oversimplification, true. There's quality control issues with this visual abstract, and there's some biases that can happen. So, this is sort of a primer on visual abstract before we go into the study. So I'm going to, now give some room for questions that people have before we move on to the actual study and how this actually improved learning or anything like that. So if you want to...
The best way is to raise your hand, and we'll unmute you, and the other place would be to we'll open the chat box if anybody just feels like writing. So, any questions?
Nobody.
Oh, let's go to the chat box. So I see nobody has a raised hand and nobody has any questions. Is that correct? Let me go back here. Oh, there's one. Okay. So Deborah, I'm unmuting you right now. You're unmuted. Go ahead. Let me see. Okay. Deborah, you're on. And then Sima.
Sima, you too. You're unmuted.
Deborah?
Okay, so
Go ahead, Sima.
I think this is a great, innovative idea, and I'm glad. But I guess my only comment is exactly what the author said, what Dr. Ibrahim said in his articles, which is this is not really meant to be a replacement for reading the article. It's supposed to be, I don't know, I guess like more like a gateway or a way to entice people to perhaps read the article, instead of actually replacing reading the article. But I mean, the worry is that people will in fact do just that. They'll just get on Twitter, they'll look at the image, and they'll kind of feel like they got enough out of it that they then don't read the article. And so that, I guess, is my concern with it, is that will we end up replacing actual critical thinking and really understanding the literature? And you can't possibly, in a picture, describe methods. You really, I mean, you can try to, but you are kind of limited in what you can describe in a picture, So that's the only comment I have.
Or do you want to comment? And I will.
Let me take. There are a lot of people who raised their hands. Let me take everyone's comments, and then we'll go over all those comments. So David, you're unmuted.
David.
Okay, Janice, you're unmuted too.
Janice. So the following people are unmuted, just to want to say something.
Janice and
when you were talking about Debbie, were you talking about me?
Yes,
Debbie. Yeah. Okay. So I want to follow up on what Sima just said. Nice to hear you, Sima. Yeah, I also have that concern. And how do you deal then with how good the article is if you're just looking at this, brief outline, which, and we already know that a lot of, well, I'd say a lot, but we come across many people who have, include citations in their references for their articles, and it turns out they may not have actually looked at the article, and, what will this do to it? And then also a question about copyright. You went over that very quickly, how the figures in this are obtained, and to making sure that there is copyright control.
Yeah. So Janice, did you have a question?
No. We have a number of text box questions.
It's a question from David to Sima. From experience, this is not generally the case. Social media provides leads, and most users then go to look at the primary literature. That's what David is telling Sima. So, I kind of agree with David that sometimes what happens is this is sort of just a gateway. It's not, everyone's not doing this for a journal club, right? I mean, every article that you're reading is not going to be a detailed article. You're going to read all the methods. It's also, if you're skimming through a journal and you want to just see what's out there in terms of latest research, it's a nice way to get that message across and move forward. And the one that actually you like, then you go in detail and read the entire article. So a visual version of these lists of abstracts gives a much more appealing way of looking at things, just a way of thinking rather than just about discussing articles. But I agree that that is a possibility. Anthony, you have a question? Anthony Batista.
Yeah,
Yep.
not for anything, but after I've read the article, I would love to be able to, instead of saving the abstracts or whatever, to save the graphics so that it could be used in another presentation or something like that. And I think these graphics are more for that. It's going to be my memory buster. When I read an article, I come out with one message. That's the message I'm going to keep and use. If I could save it as a graphics, I think it's brilliant.
So you're totally right. I use them actually for my PowerPoint slides when I'm discussing these papers with a specific audience or so forth. So that is definitely something worth thinking about. So just in interest of time, I'm just going to move on to the next paper, and then
I just wanted to say something. I wanted to ask a question, and then we'll go on to the next paper. I wanted Karnar to address the difference between a visual abstract and an infographic. And if he doesn't want to do that now, we could wait till the end. But I'm very into infographics, and I wondered if a visual abstract is a type of infographic or not. Okay.
I don't even know what an infographic is.
So if anybody reads Academic Medicine, the last page of Academic Medicine every month is a topic, and it's presented as an infographic. But maybe it's really a visual abstract, I'm realizing, because it's basically content about a subject. And you can only have 250 words in the article, and the rest of it must be graphic.
Okay.
So it sounds like it's a form of infographics to me. And it's interesting because I've always associated the word infographic, so you have 250 words of text, very little, and then all pictures to complete, but it's for a concept. They're not doing a research study.
Yeah, so
a visual abstract is geared towards a research study or a study.
Well, a review article or a summary article is not going to fit well with the visual abstract. You can, but really it's meant for research design papers.
Right. So I guess everybody who's thinking about infographics, visual abstracts fits in that mind. So before I wanted her to do the bibliometrics for Article 1 first.
Oh, okay.
Quickly. So Janice, you're on. We'll unmute you. Make sure you're unmuted, Janice. And you want to do the bibliometrics. Oh, Janice.
I did unmute.
Oh, good. No, Janice Kaplan. Oh, yeah, right. Janice, are you on? Janice. Janice. Debbie, what do you think? Okay, we'll just move.
I don't know.
I will just move on. Okay.
All right, so let's move on to the real meat of the, today's talk, which is actually the only prospective case control crossover study, what they call it. Really, it was just a small study that looked at this concept of visual abstract, again, done by the same person, Andrew Ibrahim. So what they did was, like I said, when the Annals of Surgery caught on to this idea, and they, in 2016, started doing these articles with visual abstract. So they wanted to see if that actually helped, their dissemination through social media. So this is sort of their visual abstract of the study, if you may. Basically, there were original research articles, N equals 54. There were either 22, where they were tweeted with the title and the visual abstract, or just the title alone. And then there was a washout period. Then it was reversed. So now pretty much it's the opposite. The articles that were tweeted alone now have the visual abstract, and the other way around. And then they finally wanted to assess the outcomes in terms of Twitter impressions, retweets, and article visits. So people who are not familiar with Twitter, I'll explain that in a bit, but basically these are the visual abstracts of some of the articles that they were tweeting. And this is, again, this is the format they like to use, this orange background, but it's very nicely done. It gives it to the point. So primary outcome is number of time a tweet was seen, which is an impression, number of time a tweet was shared, which is a retweet, and number of time an article link was clicked on through Twitter, and that's what they looked at. So they also did a secondary outcome, which is a spillover effect. So what they did was looked at, since they started the visual abstract concept compared to before that in 2016, if that had a spillover effect regardless of this study. So outcome number one, the primary outcome, was significant. If you look at the title alone, they only had 3,000 impressions, and there was almost 7-fold increase when you actually use the visual abstract. Okay, significant p-value. Retweets also 8-fold increase, and the article visits was 2.7-fold increase. So this was very promising, and since then I don't think they've looked back. Every article in the Annals of Surgery has a visual abstract. This is a secondary outcome. If this is before they did the visual abstract concept of the article from January through June. And regardless if they did it with the visual abstract or without the visual abstract, there was a spillover effect. All these articles had much more impressions, regardless of it, because of the spillover effect of these articles that had it. So interesting study design, an interesting way of looking at this, but before I go into my limitations, I just want to hear people's thoughts. It's a small study. What do people think of studying visual abstracts in this way? We'll start with Anthony. I think your hand's up, David. I've unmuted you, Anthony.
Elizabeth Schlegel.
And Elizabeth. I have all of you unmuted.
I think this should be standard in every journal.
I agree. Who's this, Anthony?
Anthony.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised the NEJM and JAMA just are starting to count. I don't know if JAMA has one yet. I know NEJM does. I don't think the Green Journal has visual abstracts yet.
When you say has it, that means there's a category to submit to in the author guidelines that says visual
every
abstract.
Journal is doing it differently. So sometimes the journal itself is hiring people to create this for the authors, and some journals are actually asking the author to submit a visual abstract once the paper is accepted. Some of the renal journals are doing that. One of the renal journals actually did the smart way. They actually created a team of us actually who are doing this on a regular basis and made that as a team to create visual abstracts and sort of editing it and making sure it is done by the peer reviews rather than just anyone putting it up there. I think that's the right way to do it rather than just one person doing it. Those are the things people are doing, but it's still early in the stages.
Elizabeth, you've been wanting to say something.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this very important topic. I believe that we need to complement any type of learning, any type of text with very vivid visuals. This is how people learn. And it's interesting, I ran across a randomized study where actually cartoons worked better for students in retaining information than text. I mean, it might be just a small sample, but it is something that we cannot ignore. So I'm very glad you bring that up.
Yeah, and I can just tell you, I'll show you later if we have time. I actually have an entire PowerPoint. I was talking about kidney injury in TAVR patients, and at least 30 out of my 40 slides are all papers that need to be discussed, but I just made visual abstracts. So I have no text. It's all visual abstract slides. And so it's not just journal articles. Your PowerPoint presentations will improve, if you keep doing this on a regular basis for all your articles you're reading. That's important in your field. Anyone else who, Saima, you had your hand up?
I know, I think I forgot to put it down, but I agree. I mean, the stuff it's amazing. It looks, it's very appealing, and it seems to have a lot of power. So, I mean, I thank you very much for putting this together.
I just want to say,
a question about the impressions, Kanar. Is an impression the same as a like, and that's different from a retweet, correct?
Yes. So if you go back, I'll show you again.
Good lead-in, Saima, because I want to say something about Twitter.
So number of time a tweet was seen. So if you even look at it, that counts towards an impression. And if you like it, also counts towards an impression. So if you go onto your Twitter feed and you actually looked at, and then you scroll down and you looked at a tweet, that's an impression. And then if you retweet it, now the impression increases because you have sent it to your followers who might see it. Okay.
But how do they know I looked at it? How do they know because I have to be following, how do they know, how does Twitter know I looked at something?
So that's the problem and that's the limitation, right? So you can quickly look at it, doesn't mean you clicked on the article. That's why they specifically said clicked on the article link, because you could have looked at it quickly and not even clicked on the article link, right? But even that leads to some of the limitations I bring up, because does it really, so while it's a good tool, did it really enhance learning here? Because it was such a short span, and do we know if the person actually clicked on and actually looked at the image? No one knows that. And no one knows if they even went and read the article. Yeah, they clicked on the article, but that's the general problem with Twitter and social media in overall, right? I mean, you can send a link of an article that I could do that, but I might not have even read it, So you can't really assess a knowledge gap, but no, they didn't even look at that. So, in good medical education studies, you start off in the whole pyramid, right? And the best thing is patient outcomes, and the least is knowledge outcomes, right? Is being the lowest bar, and then you go slowly up changing behavior, and then you eventually patient outcomes is the best study for med ed. This is not even assessing knowledge outcomes. This study is just telling you that there was more tweets and there was more sharing of the paper or the information, but we don't know for sure if the knowledge was enhanced unless they quizzed people on this topic or they did a post-test analysis on the specific, areas this was tested. So this is my major concern when studies like these are done, which is fine, it's good. It brings out a new concept, but now to test this concept to improve med education should be our field to move this forward and to really see this improves learning. Does it improve behaviors of learning, and finally, does it improve patient outcomes? And that's let's stop there for more discussion. Anthony. Anthony, I'm unmuting you. David.
No, I was just saying this. I find this more valuable for clinical use. I think there is a problem with do you acquire the knowledge that you really need to understand the depth of the article with just the graphic? I don't really see that. That's why I was wondering. One of the first things I put up is are there hyperlinks within these graphics that send you to the article? And I think the methodology or something, so that you can go in depth to it. I think that's if you're going to use it graphically within a journal, say, you definitely want people to use the links to the details. But for, you know, throwing something in on my phone as a reminder, then I want the simplified graphic. It's.
So I just want to some comments that some people, and again, I'll give you the mic, David. Kaushik said that many journals have summaries of the article. Is this a similarity? It is, but this is a visual summary. This could be a good journal tool for presenting a journal club, says Luz Elena, and that's true. We actually ask our fellows to make a visual abstract before each journal club that we do on Thursdays, so it actually is very useful. Anthony is saying that JAMA does infographics at the end of each issue. Again, we talked a little bit about that. And Kaushik said that some of the bigger journals, especially NEJM, have been producing short videos on social media that summarize a landmark study. That's true. JAMA does that too. And that does leave a great impression. So again, these are video abstracts, or if you will, that are very important. Another place where people are thinking of using this, and we might be doing this in nephrology, is why not have visual abstracts for your papers presented at abstracts in scientific meetings? So when you do your poster, make it like a visual abstract. Don't just put words when you're actually doing posters at conferences, which actually might have much more impact with your poster. So David?
Yeah, so thanks, Kanara. This is a great topic, by the way. Really, it's great to see all these things coming on social media. I'm happy we're talking about it too. Just a couple of comments, I guess, based on the discussion. Regarding, the conclusions, I agree with limitations. The thing is that all this is really showing is that people like to look at pictures. And I think we know that. It doesn't show much more than that. And you're right, there's a lot of more research needed. But I think it seems logical that if people see it more and they click it more, they're probably going to read it more, and there's probably going to be more downstream effects. You just have to find it and demonstrate it somehow. But I forgot who said this, but in terms of, there should be links from the visual abstracts, it's 100% true. And anybody who's done social media for a while, that whenever you participate in a conversation, whether it's blog posts, creating a podcast, or creating, a visual abstract of some kind, or slide sets, you always need to include links to whatever references. It should be built in. So if you're creating these resources, you always have to have that in there, because one, it's just kind of expected and it's standard, but secondly, it also, if you're linking to another website or to a journal, that journal then becomes aware, because you get actually notification that somebody's linking to you, so they become aware kind of your existence. And, you could also that way increase your profile, because then they may link to you and to your resources. So if you think about it as a networking opportunity, it's also very important to link to whatever, articles and journals you're discussing.
No, very good points. No, amazing. Thank you. Josh, you're on.
Oh, yeah. So, I just wanted to comment because, for me, the confusing part of this is that it's called, an abstract, and, the way I use abstracts is to decide whether I want to read an article, before I read an article. And I don't think I would use these abstracts that way. These abstracts seem like a great summary thing, a great thing for a PowerPoint slide, a great thing for a poster, or a great thing for, a clickbait, or, a way to get people to click on the article, on a social media platform. But in terms of, the way I approach journals, it's not really what I would, because, the type of data that's offered in this, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not as much of a visual learner, this is not the way I would use this.
No, that's true. I mean, again, this is maybe more likely for the visual learner. Not everyone's going to go for this. And I, just from my experience in the short, using this for 6 months, some of our fellows hate it. So he's like, why are we creating this? I actually can read better. So, and get more information out of it. So it's, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but this is, as medical educators, we want to make sure we're catching all the learners, right? And this is just another way that I'm, like someone said, how come this didn't come out sooner? So it's just using another avenue.
I just want to make a comment.
So, yeah, Alice has a comment.
So in terms of Twitter, I don't know how many of you are involved with Twitter. Kanara is quite active on Twitter, and I'd like to be more. But the things I choose to read on Twitter have things like this.
Yeah.
So I'm an infrequent Twitter user due to time, not interest. And I'll go to my Twitter feeds and pick things that have visual abstracts like this. So it is bringing attention to your comments. What I do attend on Twitter are these MedEd chats and some group chats, faculty development on Twitter. And when people post visuals on those group chats, I'm much more attentive to the group chat. So I think this is really important. Unfortunately, I just also want to say the librarian who's done the bibliometrics for this article, so I just want to open it up because I'm going to do my best to go over the bibliometrics that she did for this article that Knopf found. And this really shows you how much press an article like this is getting. And as an author of an article, you want to know that. And this article really got a lot of press. It's in the top 5% of the research outputs for Altmetric. The number is very, very high, 371, very, very high. And it's showing you in a graphic format. The citation obviously was high in the year it came out. It's also showing you 445 tweets. Now, the interesting thing about that, that's probably reaching tens of thousands of people, and I don't know exactly how to convey that to you. There's a way to convert the number of tweets that they give you how many.
Creates, yeah.
The impression goes out, and it's tens of thousands for 445, because actually I've seen 10 go out to thousands. So that's really, really a large number of tweets. So I must say that I'm really impressed with the bibliometrics of that particular article, and it's really gotten quite a bit of attention. So for the person who wrote it, they should be really, really happy.
So I guess, what I want to talk about, leave it for discussion now, are these kind of 5 points. The ripple effect of these in other journals. Are we going to use this as a scientist tool? A standardization of the format, is that really needed? Would you use this for your research and to disseminate your research? Would you use this as a journal club? So just wanted to get thoughts on what people would do with this tool now that it's there. So I see hands raised by Anthony.
Yeah, quick question. Did they happen to form to create a one for their own article?
There was one for his article, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that was treated like the most.
This is Debbie. Am I on?
Yes. You're on.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So I know you said that you're using this in your own journal club with the fellows in residence. So I'm wondering, you said some of them like to do it and some not, but do you think that they're getting more out of it because of the way you're doing this and the way you're using them? It'd be interesting to know that, and maybe there could be a study between some of what you're doing and perhaps some other departments. And the other thing I thought of is I'm wondering if this is really going to catch on, whether NLM will eventually have some kind of a record as to which articles have these visual abstracts.
So I haven't formally done a study, but we've just done haphazard. Sometimes I have the time to help them make the abstract, some don't, and not everyone's interested in doing them themselves. So it takes a time to make these. So it's not that you can just make this in 5 minutes. Maybe it takes me a good one will take me half hour. So if someone's starting out and doing this, it can take them up to 2 hours to make one. If you really are, you have to read the article, make sure you get the salient features, make sure it's nicely done, artistically accurate. So it's not just easy just putting up stuff up there. So it does have some time effort. So a lot of times the fellows are not interested in doing it then, because on top of preparing a journal club, why should they add extra stress in creating this? If someone else does for them, it can help disseminate the information. So that's where they like it. If I do it for them and they put it as their slide, they can share it to the visual learner. But it's hard to convince the learner to make one.
Elizabeth,
you have a question, comment?
Hi, it's probably a little bit out of sync by now, but I'm wondering, so I'm working a lot with visuals, and I try to use them extensively because my students like it, and it's generally very well liked. I feel I run a lot into copy infringement issues. So, it doesn't matter what you take, if you take vectors, if you take, any mnemonics. Is there any tip you can give us for items that are free?
So Noun Project, there's a paid version that we recommend that actually gives you the copyright to use it. So all these journals that are actually doing it they use Noun Project to my knowledge. I don't know about NEJM, but I know most of the renal journals and Ibrahim, they use nounproject.com, and that's where they get most of these images.
Okay.
Yeah. So rather than Googling it, because once you
Yeah.
start Googling it, you're entering that whole, copyright
Yeah,
issue.
obviously the problem. I mean, whenever I do a poster, obviously I buy these images, so that's then crystal clear. But I was
Yeah.
wondering when I pull smaller items together. Okay, thank you very much.
I think Saima, you're on.
I would just say that I would love to use something like this. I don't know, I mean, the journals I deal with mostly are the medical education journals, and I don't think that like JGME or some of the other, I don't know, the Green Journal, I don't see it yet, this format yet. So I don't know how that would work. If they don't do it, I kind of don't really see myself doing it because I really don't have the time, although you made it look really easy. So that's one. In terms of Journal Club, I don't know, this is not a bad way to search for useful articles that you'd want to pull for like an evidence-based medicine course, because if you just go to the Twitter feed and you see what's being tweeted, the picture can kind of, spark your interest. I could see myself doing that, like using what's been tweeted out in these visual abstracts to choose articles for, some kind of journal club.
Anything in the chat, Justin?
Thanks, Saima, for your comments.
I just want to go back to the bibliometric slide because she just texted me that actually the number of tweets is on the bottom there in the notes section, which I'm not sure where that is. You know how to get to notes? No, I don't know how to do that. Because you'll see it would have been thousands. Sorry. Okay.
So, I'll still leave it open for questions, but I just want to thank everybody for joining, and I just want to acknowledge Alice, Cece, and Andrew. He knows we were doing this, and I actually do a lot of Twitch chats with him and learned a lot of this stuff from him. So thank you.
I'd like to just mention there's a SurveyMonkey that follows this, and I want to thank my students for coming on and participation of everybody on this journal club, because my two speakers next month are very anxious that there won't be dialogue. They need dialogue because we're discussing a very, very controversial topic, and we're welcoming students from all over to join this conversation of the Step 1 timing exam being changed and getting rid of Step 2 CS. Very controversial issues in medical education. And the two authors coming are the authors of the articles, one from Michigan and one from Einstein. So this is my first time going out to have the authors. So it would have been like if Andrew was here today with us. So I really went to the source. So spread the word. It's quite soon. It's Tuesday, February 13th. The PR is going to go out tomorrow. SurveyMonkey, please complete. I'd love your feedback. And this was, I have to say, I've been having a bad few days, and you made my day because the amount of discussion, and I should always keep faith in Kennard that he'll pick a topic that has a lot of discussion. And Luce, I see you have a question. Your hand is up. Luce? Maybe not. Okay.
Well, thank you all.
Any last comment? I think, David, I just want to mention if you're on, and Kennard, maybe we'll have to take this to a face-to-face workshop to get people to do it. This is like, sparking interest, and we'll think about maybe a future face-to-face workshop to really get people comfortable doing it, as Simon said.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Be careful in the rain. Oh, I have to do the recording.
Oh,
Don't end anything. You can end the webinar. I have to download this recording, which I have no idea how to do.
Wait, will I stop recording?
Stop recording.